And that is the entire brake line that goes from the ABS unit to the rear splitter in the Expedition. And the front was pretty good and the back was pretty good, but this little section right here, you can see it's wet. There are holes all over the place where, for whatever reason, made a whoop-de-doo up over the top of the frame. I don't know why, because it could have gone straight. Probably something to do with how they built the thing, because I'm sure that was put on before the body was. It's in two pieces. I cut it just to make it easier to get out. The ends are metric, of course. Front and rear are both, I'm not exactly sure what thread size that is, but the nuts are 13 millimeter. Nice double flare. And I'm gonna have to just get some brake line and bend this bad boy up. And I was a little concerned when I was taking it off of the mount back here, because it plugs in right here, and that really didn't want to move, and I was afraid I was going to have to break it. But I put a good pair of pliers on this and a good wrench on this, and it loosened up, and it was actually able to spin off without even twisting off the hose. So the one going back across to the other side is not too terrible. It's not great, but it's not as crusty as this one, so it's got some pretty good life left. So I need to run a line all the way from here all the way across underneath, and then up the fender well down to here, right there. That is where it plugs in, where that little hole is. And that's going to be fun, but that's what happens with rust. I already did this on that Jeep I've mentioned a couple of times. You know, it goes through there and then drops down, follows the frame, does a few things. I'm going to simplify it a fair bit. I may make it in 2 pieces, I may make it in 3 pieces, hell, I don't know, I may make it in an infinite number of universals and couplings. Whatever I need to make sure that it's double flared and it'll work. But I'm going to end up bringing this brake line with me, probably both ends. Let's see if they're both the same. Yeah, they're both the same, because those aren't typical double flares like I'm used to. They're kind of balled out, so I want to make sure that the ends that I end up with are the correct ones for those blocks. Or, since really this pipe is good, if I can get a union, I can use these ends here and the one at the front. And that may even be what I do, is I use this end here and the end from the front piece and just made up the pipes in the middle, because I've already got the correct adapters here that do function. So, and that is going to be another project on the Copart Expedition. Okay, so I showed you all the remains of the crappy brake lines yesterday, and I was thinking about building them myself, because that's how I'd done it before. But I needed the emergency brake cable, because this one in the left rear was rusted through, and I thought about finding that online, but it was like 50 bucks. And so I said, what the hell? Let's bring some tools to the pick-apart and see what I can do. And I was able to get all of the brake lines off another 2003 XLT Expedition that I needed. The emergency brake cable, which works perfectly and has no rust on it. A couple of shocks for the hood that are maybe not perfect, but certainly better than the ones that are on this. And a new steel spare wheel. I'll end up putting one of my old tires on that. But I got all of that for about $65. So even if I end up having to bend the brake line a little bit, because The one in the back is pretty straightforward, that shorter one that goes to the back. But the one in the front goes all the way up to the AC, not the AC, the ABS unit right up in front of, right up behind the headlight, and it drops down on top of the frame, but it goes around the back side of the front body mount. So in order to get that thing out, I had to get a little bit creative with the wheel well and some other things, so I may end up having to move that to try to get this thing back in place. That's why this is a little whipped right now. This should be much more of a straight 90s, but it's going to give me what I need. And all of the, I mean, you can see all the pipe is perfect. This emergency brake, everything came out perfectly, you know, completely disconnected perfectly. It came with a spring that I didn't even know was supposed to be there, because apparently the one that was on this one is rusted away years ago. There's actually a spring to hold some tension on the cable itself, to just keep it out of the way of stuff. And then the hood struts, and you know, the wheel, and that's an actual spare wheel off another Expedition, so it's clean enough. No rust whatsoever compared to that flaky bugger that I just trashed. But we're going to start putting some of this thing back on, and if I come up with any trouble, we will let you know. Okay, well, it's the old one's off. Found a hunk of the spring, and it is gone. You can see. So what she's supposed to look like. And this one came out hard. This back piece, both of these have little things that plug in, and you got these squeeze things, squeeze clips. You can see them on that one. You got to push in and it backs out. The one on the new one, or the one at the junkyard, came out hard. This one here broke because it was so rusted in. The fronts, though, didn't do too bad. The problem I had in the front is this cable is completely seized in the jacket, so I couldn't move it to release it, so I ended up cutting it with my Sawzall, or with my bolt cutters. And we are now going to attempt to put the new one back in, see how we can do it. After, of course, I ream out that hole in there and make that a little bit more, or less cruddy. Well, there she is, hooked up, plugged in. This one was still real tight going back, but it is functional. The pedal works, comes back up like it's supposed to. I know this one works. I think the other side may be sticking, well, not sticking, but not actuating. And my bet is that other end of that, the other cable, is terrible as well. So depending on what happens, because I'm most likely going to pull these hubs off and just go in there and take a look at everything and clean it. Once I get in there and see what we got, I may either figure out if I can break that other one loose, which may be possible because it doesn't look anywhere near as rusty as this one was, or if not, I'll just go grab the other one for $5. So that is the emergency brake. Well, the rear line went in easy, as I expected, and she terminates up right here, just above where I was just working on the emergency brake. So now the fun part is going to be getting the front one around this body mount, because it goes behind it. This area of the frame doesn't look too rusty, but I am petrified of trying to take this out, because what it looks like, I don't know how this is constructed, so I think I'm just gonna try to tape off the end. You can see some of the clips where it's supposed to latch in as it goes down. I'm gonna try to tape off the end and see if we can give it a little bit of persuasion to get through there and maybe get that thing in. We will find out. That went a little better than I hoped, because we now have a one-piece brake line from the front to the back, where before it looked worse than that frame you're looking at, and obviously was really worse because it had a big frickin' hole in it. Everything went in, threaded in by hand, so I know I didn't cross anything. Got it hooked pretty good in there, mainly routed pretty well. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe start bleeding it. I'm going to go crack the bleeder on the right rear and fill this thing up and see how long it takes to get it to drip. Alright, well, I'm going to count that as a win. I just bled all the brakes with my vacuum bleeder, and then had my wife come out here and pump the pedal while I cracked the bleeders, and there was no more air. Pedal feels solid as a rock. So I am excited. I think we may actually have brakes. So I think what I'm going to do now is, well, first off, I'm going to hook the air cleaner housing back up because I took that apart to put the brake line in. But then I'm going to slap the wheels on and take this thing for a little spin in the neighborhood, see what it feels like, because I haven't driven this thing more than in first gear, I don't think, because, well, it didn't have any brakes. So we're going to see how the first drive goes. So here it is, first drive, and it's pretty good. I got an airbag light on, which I hadn't noticed before, but I'm betting that is because this seat is unplugged and it had all sorts of wires in it. I think that's all that is. I don't really have access to go to Mexico like a lot of the guys do, so I'm just gonna keep it in my neighborhood. Let's see, we'll throw it in all-wheel drive. See if that works. Weirdly, there's no indication that it's in all-wheel drive. One would think there would be. 4 high. Okay, well, there's 4 high. All right. I'm gonna see what we can do here and give it the beans a little bit in this little section for a second. Yeah, not bad. No drama. Doesn't quite have the torque of my 5.4, but pretty darn good. Brakes are fabulous. I'm happy with that, since that was the real terrible thing. Nice thing is it's got another 6 months or so of inspection, so I got some time. But no, she rides good. Steering's nice. Oh yeah, brakes. I am super happy about that. Steering is a little heavier at low speeds than I would have expected, but that's all right. We'll flip her back into 2, whatever that means. Oil pressure's good. Battery seems to be good. Temperature is good. She rides good. Boy, I tell you, this is a nice truck, considering it only's got, you know, 125.7 on it, and let's see, 125.7, and I mean, really, it's a 2003. I haven't looked up precisely when it was built, but it's most likely 15 years old now. And this thing, oh yeah, oh, the brakes are nice. Brakes are good. Brakes are very good. That was it. $10 worth of lines from the U-pull. Piece of cake. Again, like I said, I am not restoring this car. I just need to make it safe and sound, so I still got some holes to patch and things like that, but that's more cosmetics than about anything. The rest of this is pretty darn solid. So there we go. There will be more to come on the Copart expedition.